What celebrity is both a terrible artist and a terrible person? Calling him a pedophile is sugarcoating it, big time. In fact, I have a feeling that even other pedophiles would find him revolting. Among the many, many victims that he had, one of those victims was a 10-year-old. That 10-year-old had been groomed into thinking they were having an innocent sexual relationship with Davy. And when that 10-year-old told a friend at school about it, that friend posted a screenshot of the conversation to the internet. And when those screenshots made their way to Davy Vanity, how did he respond? By telling his fans that he would never do such a thing? Did he respond like a grown-up, and then use that opportunity to say to his child fans, and if someone does do something like this to you, you should tell a trusted adult? No. Instead, he makes a video aggressively mocking the victim. Rounds up his fans to harass the victim, which subject the victim, and their family, to 10+ years of harassment and ridicule as a result. Then Davy wrote a song, I put that word in quotes because it's not music, calling the victim a slut and making violent threats against them. The song was called You Done Goofed, which was a direct reference to a video of the victim's father who said this exact thing while trying to defend his screaming, crying, hysterical child who had just been raped and tortured by this man. And then, as if that weren't bad enough, he released that song on the victim's 12th birthday. And then the victim had classmates shoving cameras in their face asking them to apologize to Davy, which they finally obliged as a way to get the harassment to stop. And Davy Vanity then used that as a way to say, see? I didn't do that shit. They even admitted that they lied. Edit, I came back make the point that, when the victim was 12, one other member of Davy's cabal managed to make contact with the victim and take sexually explicit photos of them, which were then allegedly posted to the internet, and allegedly got to Davy Vanity, again, allegedly, because I am not about to look this shit up. Writing hypersexualized songs, which I refer to as lyrical child porn without any morsel of exaggeration. Just the titles of the songs alone tell you everything you need to know. For example, Scream for My Ice Cream, Welcome to Candyland, S My D, Sext. I could go on. Which are clearly about children. Sext in particular has the lyric parents banging on the door / uh-oh, caught with my pants down / now I gotta leave this town. Constantly pulling his pants down during concerts, which were heavily attended by children. He proudly exclaimed, during a concert, again, primarily attended by children, that he wanted to just come on all of their little titties. He has a very long, very specific pattern of grooming his underage fans, and that's the good news. The bad news is that he's been repeatedly, and again, with a specific pattern, accused by many of the former grooming victims with a cornucopia of sexual assaults, being violent with them, biting to the point of drawing blood, emotionally, mentally and financially manipulating them, and occasionally their parents, as well, telling them it never happened and they're slutty or crazy or making things up to get attention, and all the etc. you'd expect to come along with such behaviors. He's a pathetic, vile, small sad excuse for a person. I used to work in the film industry, feeding the cast and crew. I absolutely loved my job and did it on and off for about 20 years. I was working on a film with a woman I was really looking forward to meeting, Marlo Thomas, as I used to watch her on That Girl back in the 60s. Her co-star was Joe Penny, from Jake and the Fat Man, and I had worked with him before on another movie. When I delivered his breakfast to the makeup trailer, she was at the far end and just staring daggers at me. Right from the get-go, she wanted me fired and made it her mission to make my life miserable. When she couldn't get me fired, she came up with the most creative ways to make me look bad. She sent her minions to ask me to write out everything I did during the day and have it sent to her. Then, in front of the crew, she blurted, "What is this?" referring to the craft table. "Do you know how hard these people work?" I received many sympathetic looks from the crew, most of whom I'd worked with for years. She continued to shame and embarrass me, but my PM, production manager, came to my rescue and told her that if I go, he goes. I had been specifically asked for because of my experience and personality and managed to get through the entire show. She mentioned to the crew that she would be coming back for another project and asked for them to be on that show with her again. Not one of them said yes. She was such a hateful shrew. The daughter of Danny Thomas, who grew up in the industry, but because of some personal vendetta, she acted like a spoiled kid. I was so disappointed, but there you go. Just because you see them on TV or the movies, you don't have any idea who they really are. Randy Jackson from American Idol. This didn't happen to me but to my brother. He used to work as a waiter at a high-end Chinese restaurant, and one night, lo and behold, in walks Randy Jackson with his 2 bodyguards. He had the bodyguards do all the talking to the waitstaff and even had the audacity to attempt a skip out on his $150 tab. As Randy and his posse were pulling up to exit the parking lot, my brother jumps out in front of them and demanded them to pay their tab. He paid the tab but didn't leave my brother a tip. He's paid millions upon millions of dollars, but doesn't have the courtesy to leave a tip, let alone try and skip on a tab. Fuck him. Allow me to explain exactly why Hitler's artwork was bad, since this discussion comes up every time it's mentioned on Reddit. The trouble with Hitler as an artist is that he clearly had a flair for architectural landscapes, but he wasn't willing to put in the work to master the fundamentals. The perspective of his buildings were off, with architecture that didn't make sense. These are very basic mistakes that should be fixed at the sketching stage, but he would ignore them and finish his paintings with these fundamental flaws intact. This was noticed by the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna. They didn't reject him outright, they offered him the chance to study in a lower-level course, and then apply again once he had improved. But Hitler wasn't willing to do that, and so he gave up on art completely instead. Brown was driving a vehicle with Robin F. as the front passenger on an unknown street in Los Angeles. Robin F. picked up Brown's cellular phone and observed a 3-page text message from a woman who Brown had a previous sexual relationship with. A verbal argument ensued and Brown pulled the vehicle over on an unknown street, reached over Robin F. with his right hand, opened the car door and attempted to force her out. Brown was unable to force Robin F. out of the vehicle because she was wearing a seat belt. When he could not force her to exit, he took his right hand and shoved her head against the passenger window of the vehicle, causing an approximate 1-inch raised circular contusion. Robin F. turned to face Brown and he punched her in the left eye with his right hand. He then drove away in the vehicle and continued to punch her in the face with his right hand while steering the vehicle with his left hand. The assault caused Robin F.'s mouth to fill with blood and blood to splatter all over her clothing and the interior of the vehicle. Brown looked at Robin F. and stated, "I'm going to beat the sh out of you when we get home. You wait and see." The detective said Robin F. then used her cell phone to call her personal assistant Jennifer Rosales, who did not answer. Robin F. pretended to talk to her and stated, "I'm on my way home. Make sure the police are there when I get there." After Robin F. faked the call, Brown looked at her and stated, "You just did the stupidest thing ever. Now I'm really going to kill you." Brown resumed punching Robin F. and she interlocked her fingers behind her head and brought her elbows forward to protect her face. She then bent over at the waist, placing her elbows and face near her lap in an attempt to protect her face and head from the barrage of punches being levied upon her by Brown. Brown continued to punch Robin F. on her left arm and hand, causing her to suffer a contusion on her left triceps, that was approximately 2 inches in diameter, and numerous contusions on her left hand. Brown continued driving and Robin F. observed his cellular telephone sitting in his lap. She picked up the cellular telephone with her left hand, and before she could make a call he placed her in a headlock with his right hand and continued to drive the vehicle with his left hand. Brown pulled Robin F. close to him and bit her on her left ear. She was able to feel the vehicle swerving from right to left as Brown sped away. He stopped the vehicle in front of 333 North June Street and Robin F. turned off the car, removed the key from the ignition and sat on it. Brown did not know what she did with the key and began punching her in the face and arms. He then placed her in a headlock, positioning the front of her throat between his bicep and forearm. Brown began applying pressure to Robin F.'s left and right carotid arteries, causing her to be unable to breathe, and she began to lose consciousness. She reached up with her left hand and began attempting to gouge his eyes in an attempt to free herself. Brown bit her left ring and middle fingers and then released her. While Brown continued to punch her, she turned around and placed her back against the passenger door. She brought her knees to her chest, placed her feet against Brown's body and began pushing him away. Brown continued to punch her on the legs and feet, causing several contusions. Robin F. began screaming for help and Brown exited the vehicle and walked away. A resident in the neighborhood heard Robin F.'s plea for help and called 911, causing a police response. An investigation was conducted and Robin F. was issued a domestic violence emergency protective order. In the late 90s, a very famous artist developed a successful franchise around his work. He even opened several officially licensed art galleries with his name on them. I've never been a fan of his work, but my mother was. So when I had a chance to visit one such gallery in Boston, a friend and I went to check it out. I was hoping to find a small print as a gift for her. I should have turned about face as soon as I heard the screaming from outside, but I didn't. As soon as we crossed the threshold of the doors, bam! There he is. Thomas Kincaid himself is screaming at this poor female in turn, calling her names and humiliating her in front of a gallery full of about 4 to 6 people. She looked like she just wanted to go home and hide, and I swear she turned and looked at me with a help me expression. Edit 2. A few have asked why I didn't try to stop him, which is a fair question. For context, I was a teenage girl when this incident happened. What do you honestly expect a frightened and naive teenage girl to do to stop a drunk grown-ass man who was twice my size? There's a very good chance he'd have turned his abuse onto me. Furthermore, this incident happened about 2 months after Columbine. What do you think would happen to a teenage girl wearing black lipstick and a Marilyn Manson shirt, just for saying something? Not only could Kincaid possibly have started abusing me, but if someone decided to tell Boston PD that I was acting aggressively just because I was some goth kid wearing a shirt, then it'd be his word against mine and I'd have been taken to juvie with no questions asked. Apparently very anti-union, showed up to a TV writers union meeting or something and basically just yelled about how he shouldn't have to pay his writers more. Bear in mind it's really CBS that pays his writers anyway. There's also a story that goes around about him acting really annoyed at a baby on a plane, and refusing to help the mother lift a suitcase. A story that becomes a lot worse when it's explained that this turned out to be his wife and child. That's the story that got told because McLaren wanted to cultivate an image of himself as a masterful manager coming up with outrageous stuff and being anti-establishment. The truth has a lot more to do with Sid being Johnny's friend, and Johnny always felt that he was on his own due to the closeness of Paul and Steve. McLaren was also absolutely floored when he appeared on early evening TV and got drunk and dropped a load of F-bombs, told them they had ruined their career. He was hugely pissed off with them. Next day they are front page news and everyone knows about them. Again, Malcolm later claims he was the mastermind behind all they did. I see of people talk about them being a manufactured band on the internet. McLaren has a lot to do with that because of his revisionism, and also they are a very polarizing band and it's a quick way dismissing them to say they were manufactured. Okay, hear me out, Demi Lovato. Their music is okay at best if not generic, but my god, they are such a pretentious, privileged, angry crybaby. They tried to use their influence and follower count to have a small froyo business cancelled by the fat positive movement for having healthier, vegan and diet, sugar/fat free, options at the counter because it was triggering, calling the company diet culture vultures. Then when it blew up in their face, they made a video where they apologized without apologizing, saying they felt good for doing what they did. Absolute garbage, ignorant trash human with quintessential main character syndrome. Jenny McCarthy is not just a terrible actress, but is an awful person that has contributed to the deaths of thousands of people, while also being a large reason why COVID has gone on as long as it has. I'm not being hyperbolic. McCarthy gave a platform to vaccines cause autism 10 years ago, spreading fake scientific studies and encouraging the precursor to what became the anti-COVID vaccine movement today. It was all bullshit, but people ate it up. What's the saying? A lie can travel around the world and back again while the truth is lacing up its boots. Thanks to McCarthy, people now doubt vaccines. Her brother is in prison for raping an 11-year-old girl, not once, but multiple times over the course of a few months. The girl said it happened at least 4 times a week, sometimes twice a day. Her younger brother witnessed at least one of the assaults. During his trial, Nikki posted shit on her Instagram about how much she loves his brother and she bailed him out when he first got arrested. They then tried to drag the poor girl's mom, saying that she was just looking for hush money. When that didn't work, his lawyers asked for a second chance for him because he has issues with alcohol and other health problems, such as hypothermia and anemia. Like, bitch, put a jacket on and eat a steak, don't go around raping children. He really didn't have a chance to shine in Horsin' Around, but he really came through in Filbert, too. No joke, though. That show made me ugly laugh and ugly cry with regularity. It started off as haha the horse is drinking again and went to, oh no the horse is drinking again. The view from halfway down was brutal. The whole last few seasons were heartbreaking and hilarious and raw and angry and probably some of the best television produced. Top 10 for series. Seriously. Top 10. Marilyn Manson. Typical controlling/abusive mall goth tryhard. His music has always sucked and was about as dark and creepy as a well-lit room. Wanna see a Manson concert? Just imagine your fat drunk uncle stumbling around on stage rambling on and on about how cool it is that he's too fucked up to actually perform, while putting an emphasis on the word fucked like he's a 9-year-old that just learned the word and thinks he's a rebel for saying it. There, saved you some time and money. I cuss and I do drugs. I'm fucked up. Yeah okay buddy, lol, you abuse young girls and make dumb music.